Hello guys, Alan here and welcome to the best and most authoritative Revit tutorial channel you can ever find on YouTube. Trust me guys, there's no other channel coming like Alan Architectural. So before we get started into what we have to do today, I want to take a minute to tell you guys to make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel. Is very important. If you haven't liked this video, make sure you like the video, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on professional tutorials like this. So let's get started in what we have to do today. So in today's video, I'm going to be explaining our geometric forms, our generic model forms we have in Revit. I'm going to be giving you guys a guide and tips on how we can actually use that to benefit us in any of our projects. All right, so I'm going to be showing you guys how you can use your generic models in Revit. All right, now with the generic models is project specific. All right, you can only use that in a project. It's only applicable in a project. You can't save that. Maybe if you are able to model out something, if you're able to model out something in Revit, all right, with this one you can't save it, all right, so that you can use it in another project. It's just projects applicable. You can only use it in a specific project, all right, in only the project that you are currently working in. So I'm going to be explaining all this to you. We have the extrusion, the blend, we have the revolve form, the sweep, the swept bend, and then the void forms. So without wasting much time, let's just get started. Now, the only way, or one of the reasons why you would actually use a generic model, all right, is if maybe what you are designing you can't use maybe the ceiling or the floor or the ramp or the stair. All right, that is when you are going to find your generic model coming in very handy. So I'm going to be showing you guys how you can do that and how it works. So I'm going to start off. So what you need to do is you need to go to this component tab. All right, now do not click on the component tab, because when you click on that component tab, you're just going to have all the components you load in inside of Revit. We don't want that, so just escape that out of the way. Now click on the drop down menu right beside it. So just click on that drop down menu and then you head straight into model in place. You click on that model in place, you're definitely going to get a pop-up menu like this, the family, category, and parameters. All right, so you're going to scroll down and then make sure you find generic models. So this is my generic models right there. I'm going to click on that and then I'm going to click on OK, and you can name it whatever you want. So I'm going to call this Shebet. I'm going to call this Shebet right there, and I'm going to hit on OK. And so now for us to get started in there, you're supposed to head into the create tab. So Revit is going to send it into the create tab by default. All right, and you can see it in there. We have extrusion, we have blend, we have revolve, we have sweep, we have swept, blend, and then we have the void forms. All right, so we're going to start with extrusion. So I'm going to click on extrusion, and when you click on extrusion, you're going to see we have all these drawing symbols in there. We can decide to draw it line by line, or we can decide to draw it in a rectangular form or a square form, or we can head straight into drawing it into a polygon, and then we can also draw it into a circumscribed polygon, a circle, and then we have our start end arc radius. So we have all these tools in there we can actually draw to achieve whatever we want to achieve in there. So I'm just going to draw a simple polygon in there, and when you click on that shape or that form that you want to draw in, now one thing you need to pay attention is your extrusion end. All right, so we want it to go, this is where you're going to show how long you want it to extrude. All right, if you want it to extrude about a meter, all right, we want it to go up to a meter, you have to put it in there. All right, Revit is always going to give you by default an extrusion end of 250, all right, which is 25 cm. Revit is always going to give you that, so we don't want that. We want everything to go to about a meter. All right, just for the sake of this video. So I'm going to draw my extrusion in there. I'm going to draw my extrusion in there. I'm going to leave it at 3001 in there. I'm going to finish that out of the way, and then I'm going to head straight into my 3D view to see what I have in there. So you can see my extrusion in there is gone up to a meter. Now those of you who won't believe that it's up to a meter, let me just prove that to you so you can see. Let's head into any of the elevation views so we can measure that, so you see it in there what I'm talking about. So it's extruding to about 1000 millimeters. All right, if it were 250, it would be diving down somewhere around here. So we want everything to go up to about a meter. All right, so we've just done a simple polygon. Now the cool thing about the generic model is we can click on it and then we can work on either side. All right, we can decide to send this up a little bit and we can decide to extrude this portion out, or we can bring it back by hitting on Ctrl Z to get it to default. We can click on it again and then you have all these commands. All right, we have this down there. When we pull this down or we drag this down, it's going to move that also down. So you can play around with it with any kind of form that you want to achieve in there. So this is a simple one. With this first type, which is the extrusion type, is a very simple one. So you just need to draw that and then you just extrude it in any form that you want. So let's finish with that. So we are going to head into the blend form. So let's just head into the create tab and then we get into the blend form. So now with a blend form, it's like we are blending two different shapes together, all right, to form a geometric form. So we are going to start off. Let me head back into the level 0 and I'm going to start off with a square. I'm going to draw a square in there and let me just move this to quite the center. And when you finish drawing the square, you would have to now add the top part to it. So we are going to click on the edit top and I'm going to add a polygon somewhere in there. I'm going to add a polygon to about this. I'm going to want to center that. I'll have to center that somewhere around here. Okay, this is perfect. And then we can now finish this in a way. And our extrusion end, we can change that to about 1000 millimeters, just like the other ones. And now let's head into our 3D view. Let's see what we have in there. So this is what we have in there. So this is what you can use to actually achieve whatever you want. All right, you can just click on that and then you can extrude the bottom part and then also the top part as well. So it's like we've blended a circumscribed polygon with a square. All right, so this is what we have for the blend. You can play around with it. It's just a simple form as well, a simple geometric form as well, unlike the extrusion part where we just create a shape and then we just extrude. All right, with the blend, we are blending two different shapes together. All right, it's a very cool type of form in there. I really like the blend aspect as well. So now let's head straight into the revolving part. All right, so let's go into the revolving parts. Let me just head straight into level 0 and then let me go back into the create tab and let me explain the revolve type to you guys. All right, so with the revolve, let me head back into, so with the revolve type, we can just click on the revolve type and then we'll have to draw a boundary line and then we then draw our axis and then it forms that revolving form. If I don't know if you guys get me, but you guys are going to get me in a second. So I'm going to use this tool right here. I'm going to draw that with a boundary line in there. I'm going to draw somewhere around in there. Okay, let me just put that out of the way. Let me just draw this and then just bring this here and then I'm going to lift this about in there and I'm going to close that also in there as well. So now what you have to do is it's going to look like something revolving in each other. So we would have to now draw our axis line in there. So I'm going to draw my axis line somewhere around in here. I'm going to finish that and then I'm going to finish this in there as well. I'm going to head into finish and I'm going to lift that to about, head into the 3D view and then you can see what I'm talking about. So it looks like after drawing that semicircle and then we just draw our axis line in there and then it revolves in there as well. I'm going to change this to shaded so you can see it in there. We have that also revolving in each other. Now you guys are going to get the process in there, so you can play around with any kind of form that you want also in there. Now I'm going to head straight into the sweep command, which is a very useful tool, trust me guys. Now with the sweep command, all these facial designs you see at the edges of a parapet wall, all right, now all those facial designs that you see coming off on the parapet wall, all right, at the edges of the wall, is formed by the sweep command. All right, with the sweep command, it looks like a command where we can actually just put in a line. We can just draw a line and then after drawing that line, we are going to make a design that is going to follow and sweep along that line, which is very fast and quick. Trust me guys, you're going to love this sweep form. So I'm going to head straight back into architecture. Let me head back into my generic models in there. I kind of escaped all the way into the real project, so let me go back in there, head back in there. So we are now going to use our sweep form. So let me just click on my sweep form in there, and we'll need to now sketch a path. We can't pick a path, all right, because we don't have any walls in there that we are going to pick a path we want our design to follow along. All right, so we are going to sketch a path in there. So I'm going to head into my, let me just head into the 3D view, and let me just draw this at the top. Let me see if it's going to work. So sketch a path, and I'm just going to sketch something around this form, just a square. All right, so after sketching the square, I'm going to head into an angle where you're going to have this reference, planes, all right, with a point 0. So that is where we are going to draw our design in there. So after drawing that, we'll need to finish that out of the way, and then we'll now need to add a profile. All right, we need to add a profile or a design form we want it to follow. So we are going to click on edit profile, and I'm going to draw that design I want it to follow. So I'm going to do what we usually do for the facial that I was talking about. So let me just draw that in there so you guys see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to bring this somewhere. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. Let me just leave that out of the way. Let me just draw any shape in there so you guys can appreciate it very well, and we'll come across that maybe in subsequent videos. So you can draw any shape you want, because this design, this shape, now trust me guys, this shape we've drawn in there is what is going to sweep in all this design. Let me just clear this out of the way. Let me just clear all this out of the way, and let me draw that again. Okay, let me make it very huge. All right, so we are going to finish that, and then we're going to finish this, and then you can see in there our design is swept on the form that we just created in there. So we can use this to actually create a building. All right, you can use this for a design form work for a building. All right, it depends on the kind of design that you're having in there. So we are moving next onto in our swept bend. So we are going to head back into create tab, and then we're going to click on our swept bend. So with the swept bend, we are also going to sketch a path, because we don't have any path that we are going to actually pick a path to actually draw our design on. So I'm just going to sketch any path in there. I'm going to use this one right there. So I'm going to sketch a path and bring this somewhere around in here. So finish that, and when you're done, you need to hit on this check tab, right, this finish edit mode. So you click on that, and then we'll start with our profile 1. All right, so this is the profile 1 in there, and then we're going to draw our shape in there as well. So I'm going to draw something like of this sort, and then I'll finish that, and then also head to edit profile 2, and I'm going to change or adjust my view to actually get to the point in there, to that point in there, and then I'm going to draw my profile. I'm going to draw something of a circle in there, something like this, and then I'm going to finish that, and you can see in there I have that in there as well. So with a swept bend, it's also going to come in the form of like the blend as well. So it's just going to be like different shapes which are going to sweep on each other. All right, it's quite an interesting form in Revit. All right, so we are going to move next to our void form. So I'm going to head straight into the void form. So with the void forms, we actually have different types. So you can just click on that drop down menu, and then it's going to have all those other forms like the void blend, the void revolve. So it's just going to create a void. All right, a void which is going to look like all of this stuff you see in there. So I'm just going to do an example with the void extrusion so you guys see what I'm talking about. All right, so before I do an example of the void extrusion, let me just head to the top right there, and let me just make an extrusion. Let me just draw any shape of an extrusion in there. Let me send this to about 2000 meters in there, and let me just finish that and head in there as well. So I'm going to head into my create tab, and then I'm going to create a void form of an extrusion. So what you have to do is you can just adjust that, and then you can create the void that you want. So I want a void extrusion, and then I'm going to create a void of any of this design and polygon. Let me just put that in there, and then I'm going to finish that, and then also make sure I finish this somewhere in there, finish mode, and then head back in there, and you can see in there, so I have my void created in there by the shape, which is a void extrusion. So I can actually reduce this and send this up in there, and it's not going to have that void because our void extrusion in there is more than that. So it's just 2 meters. So this is how we create our void forms. So it's just the same procedure as the extrusion, the blend, the revolve, sweep, swept, bend. So you can have that in there as well. Now make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. This is how you can actually use all these geometric forms, these generic models, to create anything or absolutely anything that you need in your project that you are working on. So make sure you like my video, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'll be bringing out more tutorials like this. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out. I'm still working real hard on a Saturday. A future I don't see from a mile away.